tell us a bit about you, Sophie, just for the listeners of the podcast.
Okay, yeah. So my name's Sophie Wood. I currently live in the south of Spain. I've been working since 2015 in Gibraltar, British Overseas Territory, right
Yeah.
on the foot of the European continent. Um, I am a trans woman. I came out as trans in 2011. Uh, and at that time, it was pre me moving over to Spain. I was in the UK, in the centre of the country, in Worcestershire, living in a town called Bewdley by the River Severn. And I was working for the UK Police Service. So I was a trainer. I was a police civilian, but I trained the police service in information systems, intelligence systems, and also how to collect intelligence, and particularly how to gain intelligence from cellular, um, mobile networks and Wi-Fi networks, and
Okay.
then using that data to put it into either an intelligence-led interview to challenge an alibi, for example, or to actually put it into court as evidence to actually prove that somebody's in a certain time in a certain place.
Wow.
Um, so that was really fascinating.
Yeah.
In 2011, I was seconded to the Home Office and the College of Policing to lead um, a national uh, training program. So the police had launched something called the Police National Database. So this was a recommendation from the Bishard Inquiry. So I don't know if you remember the Bishard Inquiry. So it was an inquiry led by Sir Michael Bishard into the failings of the police to adequately hold and use information and intelligence. And the spur for that inquiry was the murders of Holly Wells and Jessica in Soham, if you remember, by Ian Huntley.
Yes.
So, and it was halfway through that experience I actually came out as trans. So that's when I came out. That was quite challenging uh, for the Home Office and College of Policing, because they didn't really know what to do. Um,
Yeah.
and it was actually towards the end of the secondment, and I can remember being in my last week at work, and finally somebody from HR on the phone to me and said, "We hear that you've actually transitioned. We're keen to support you in any way that we can. Just let us know what we can do." And I
In
was
the
like,
last week.
it's really kind of you to say so. I'm actually leaving next Monday." So uh, they've taken about 5 weeks to kind of get their act together, actually kind of find out what's going on. So that was my first coming out. The second coming out, I returned to West Mercia, which was my home police area, and came out all over again. And that had its own set of challenges because my wife worked in the same office as I did. So Danielle was in charge of recruitment for West Mercia Police. I was in learning development. Um, Her team were down one end of the office, my team were down the other end of this open plan office. And so it wasn't just managing, my transition and everybody's reaction to that. It was also managing and looking after Danielle through that experience.
So 2011, I mean, it's not that long ago in some
No,
ways. It must have been quite, I mean, was it a challenge to come out at that time?
yeah, it was incredibly challenging. Um, it was it was my personal life outside of work was uh, almost like I'd how can I put it, completely destroyed. So one of the things I actually realised that I was trans quite late in life, um, and I had this kind of epiphany moment when I was working through stuff with a therapist, and then I knew I had to do something about it because I'd been kind of doing damage to myself, physically. And so I wasn't in a good place. So I kind of had this epiphany, had this realization, had to do something about it. So I came out at work, came out to Danielle, her family, my family. And the first thing that happened was my family said they'd never be able to accept me as a trans person. So I had a close relationship with my brother, my mother and father. They'd always said things like, "I will always be there for you, whatever
Yeah.
happens."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. But when I actually came out, they basically wrote me a letter saying that they would never be able to accept me. Um, and that was 2011. And that's the last time I had contact with my family. So
Well,
that's quite a hurtful experience. At the same time, my local community in Bewdley, where I lived, were quite hostile towards me as well. So I experienced lots of kind of, abuse, name calling, kind of made life really uncomfortable. So I kind of retreated into four walls. So concurrently, Danielle's kind of moved off, so I'm by myself, and life was very, very challenging. As soon as I came out, I was keen to engage with the NHS, to actually kind of get support and treatment through a medical kind of care pathway. And I was quite lucky initially with that. But then after being accepted as a referral into the gender clinic at Charing Cross, I received a letter from them saying I've been discharged because my local health authority wouldn't fund the treatment and wouldn't fund the referral. Now, considering I'd really thrown all my eggs into this very small basket, I went completely off the rails. So I tried to take my life twice in quick succession. I ended up being sectioned, ended up spending a week in a mental health institution, which was quite scary. But then kind of came out of that, discovered that the problem with my referral was administration, would you believe it? And the health authority had submitted an old form rather than the new form, which was the reason for me being discharged. So I had to answer 5 questions on this form. First question was, what is your name? The second question was, what's your date of birth? And the third one was, what was your sex designated at birth? So they weren't difficult questions to answer. So I almost kind of lost my life through bad administration, which can look back with a certain sense of humour on that. But at that time, when that was happening, I was at West Mercia working at police headquarters, and I literally came out of this mental health institution back into work, and nobody knew anything about that. And I continued training, so I would kind of get a new set of police officers in the classroom on a Monday, and then wave goodbye to them on a Friday, and that was great for me. It gave me an opportunity to use my voice. There's great power to be able to say words out loud, because when you're by yourself, that kind of loneliness, then thoughts just kind of go round and round your head. So, in short, all of that experience has made me a great advocate for supporting people's mental health. So that's why I kind of became a mental health first aid instructor recently. And one of the things that I do now is I deliver mental health first aid training to people in Gibraltar and in the UK by the magic of Zoom. So then diversity is then the output. That's the successful outcome.